because we're a very small number, so it would just be a bit more intimate and warm. My name is Shilpa. I head programming here at MAP, and I am delighted to be introducing Tarik Currimbhoy. Tarik Currimbhoy is an artist who has a studio in New York, who also has his works as part of the exhibition at the Infosys Foundation Gallery on the ground floor, Painting with Fire, as well as the Cobra, an installation that is outside near the accessibility parking spot here at the museum. It was one of the installations that we opened the museum with, and we hope the Cobra will stick around for a very long time. Thank you so much, Tarik, for being here this weekend. Tarik today is just going to talk a little bit more about his practice, spend a little bit time on a couple of his works, and then give us insights into what making all of this looks like. So thank you so much, and I'll leave it to you.
So I have a question regarding this.
Yes.
I put this on.
So this is already on.
Okay.
You just move up ahead.
Okay.
Sorry. Just checked it.
So that's the sensor?
Yeah, it's actually right here up ahead, but
Or you can play it. Now, you know, it's simple.
there we go.
I can just talk.
We'll start with the video there.
Yeah. Let me speak before that.
Okay.
Listen, thank you for coming here today. And I've been speaking in my talk downstairs. I spoke on the Cobra outside, and now I'm speaking to all of you in the auditorium. However, since it's such a small group, let it be more of a conversation than me talking about my whole work. But I'll walk you through it, and then you feel free to question me on anything, and I'd love to answer it. Yeah. Now, to give you my background, my background is a BFA at Pratt, a Bachelor's of Fine Arts from Pratt, and then So what I went to America in 1975. I went to Pratt and I got my Bachelor's of Fine Arts from Pratt. And at that time I met this lady called Rowena Reed Costello. So Rowena Reed Costello was my teacher who taught me how to see. Now, taught me how to see form, the positive form and the negative space. She ended up creating the foundation program of form and space, not only in America, but across the world. And she was instrumental in my upbringing, and she's instrumental in me being a sculptor today, because my understanding of form, my understanding of light is really from her. So she gave me the eyes to see my world. Let's see I'll walk you through these projects of mine, these sculptures of mine.
The way I see architecture, you know, it's an answer to a question. Somebody commissions you to do a piece of architecture. And in terms of art, you do what you feel. So what I did is I took the tenets of architecture, that dealt in permanence, that dealt in weight, that dealt in light, and dealt in shadow. What I do is I take a simple form, and then I play with it. I take a shape and then I distill it till it's very, very basic. One creates these shapes understanding it intuitively. So what I do is in New York I sketch it out, and then one goes through the motions of creating models. I have an architecture office in Bombay, and I can do it there because I can make mistakes here. Mistakes means, you know, you can correct a shape as it's being formed. So I have it cast there, then it comes to New York where it's polished here. So I'm trying to achieve the marriage of materials. It takes like 6 months to a year to create, actually, to get it down perfect. But by the end, the equation is simplicity. So what I am trying to invite is I'm trying to invite interaction. Yes, and the interaction between the form and between you. I'm also trying to create a journey and a dialogue between the viewer and the object itself. It's like I talk to my pieces in the morning. They're my best friends. It's you interacting with a shape, with a form, with space, and you finding your own tranquility. I don't want it to be an answer to a mathematical question. I want it to be a journey. It's rocking, it's swaying, it creates a melody. It's simplicity, it's a beautiful static form, and it's a beautiful dynamic form. The distillation of form and pressure and gravity to its basic points. And the beauty of it is, when do you stop? Can a whisper be heard?
So in essence, the story is actually to take a form. You look at it, you understand it, and then you distill it to its basic fundamentals. That means, my friend Naeem Khan, he does zaris. He does all zari work. And he does these dresses for Michelle Obama. Yep. Now, what I do is, he takes it, he embroiders it, he embroiders it, he embroiders it. Now, when you put zari work in, it looks beautiful. It's decoration. I come from another point of view. I'm saying, okay, that's decoration. Now let's distill it, and further distill it, and further distill it, till you reach its anatomy itself. So in essence, it's more like the Bauhaus, the German school of thought, that says form follows a function. So you look at your hand, it's bones, and then there's flesh. And as you turn your hands, or you take a cricket ball, you're bowling, and then you hold the ball, and that is a function. Therefore, my pieces are based on its pure, minimal shape, which has to look beautiful, and it's also based on gravity and on weight. It's like a ballerina dancing. Or closer to home, it's like a Kathakali dancing or a Bharatnatyam dancing. And when the dancer dances, he creates his own melody, his own balance, and his own tarana, actually, yeah? And I feel that's where the power of this piece lies. So what I do is I make sure that the piece looks beautiful, and then I say, okay, now I've achieved its visual equilibrium of its basic property. Then I said, okay, now from its basics, how can I make it look better? So I move it a little bit in terms of its form, in terms of its positive shape. So I look at it in terms of the space around it. I look at the sun shining on it, and more importantly, I look at the shadow, because I feel that the shadow holds it to the earth. And that excites me. And based on that, I make the piece move like a pendulum. Yes? Now, it's like downstairs when you see the cobra. When you see the cobra, that is a reverse curve. Yes? That's what my teacher, Rohini Reed, taught me. So it's a reverse curve. And as the curve undulates, the point of balance shifts. And that shifting is very important. It's like a pendulum. Now, when you look at the pendulum, it's straight. And when it moves, it kicks it to the right and kicks it to the left. Now, when it kicks it to the right, the center point shifts. So what happens is that point from the right goes to the left, and then goes to the right, and goes to the left, and goes to the right. And that eventually ends up in the middle. And that's when you reach your equilibrium. But it keeps moving back and forth, and that's the dancer moving. And then the weight finally settles it. And when the weight finally settles it, it's that point of connection that determines how that piece moves. Now, each metal has its own weight. Stainless steel has its own weight. Copper and bronze have its own weight. That means that the weight oscillates. Each one oscillates in a different velocity, in a different manner. So if I was to push stainless steel, maybe it'd go 1 foot here, 1 foot there. If I was to push bronze, it would maybe go 2 feet here and 2 feet there. Bronze is heavier, so it'll move longer. Stainless steel is lighter, so it'll move less. What I also do is, for instance, this chair which has chrome on it, it has chrome. I don't use chrome. there's a steel called 304, which is a quality of steel. And then there's another steel called 316L, which is surgical steel. Now I use surgical steel both on the outside as well as on the inside. That surgical steel has a certain weight. Now it's very interesting. In America, Americans don't respond to copper. I love copper, actually. I love copper. I love bronze. America responds to brass and stainless steel. I guess it's a cultural thing, but I don't look at it as a cultural thing. I look at it in terms of weights and balances. And then I look at it in terms of one piece interacting with another. So when you have two pieces moving side by side, there is a dance, and that dance is tranquil, and that's what I love about it. Yes, and it's all based on this kinetic movement of a beautiful naked form. Okay, now this rocker here that you see here comes from a wood called white ash. White ash, what it has, it's got these little pores. And when you fire it, when you burn it, these little pores open, but they open in a very predictable manner because it's very clean and vertical. The grain is very vertical and straight, as opposed to, say, mahogany, which has flowers in it. Yeah? Or you say vengi. Vengi is black, but the blackness, the hardness, doesn't let it burn well. It burns like another kind of wood, but it doesn't show its insides. While white oak does, maple does not, poplar does not, walnut does not, but ash does. And I like ash because it expresses it to the fullest. This piece here has ash, and then I've cut it in a manner that's at an angle, and it's like a surat. When joined together like a chevron pattern, when these chevron patterns are glued together, they read like namastes, actually, like folded hands. Now at the airport, when you see a piece, this is kinetic. I think the piece at Terminal 2 is a waste because it's not kinetic. But because it's a public space, they've anchored it and screwed it to a base. Otherwise, what happens is it moves for about 20 minutes, and it moves and says namaste to you. The chevron pattern goes this way, this way, this way, this way. However, this is the way it was done. Each one was numbered, like you see here, yeah? Now before that, a template was made. So that's the size, and then these two. Now this one at the back is ash, in the front is white oak. And that's how it's cut. Each piece is cut. Now the beauty of the show downstairs is it follows the same religion and the same respect to the wood itself. So in essence, what one does is you look at the wood, you say wood is God, and you work with it. You can't work against it. I don't use it as a color. I use it for itself as a living being. I use it for what it actually is. Now Jeram Patel uses it as a palette, as a color palette. I feel that if I used it as a color palette, I'd kill the ethos of my piece itself, because then it'll be like a blackboard. It'll be like a painting. I don't want it to be a painting. I want it to be an experience. So basically when I burn, what it does is it brings out the charcoal in it, it brings out the veins in it, and it talks to me. Now, one doesn't know what the end result is going to be because it's organic. It's totally unpredictable. Now you take a trunk of a tree, you cut it. When you cut it, you see its concentric circles. And when you burn the circles, you don't know how it's going to be. So you just wait and see, and you spend more time looking and observing it. It's like an artist. You paint and you stand back, you let the painting influence you, and you go back on it. And that's me blowing it. And that's me burning it. And then I stop. And then I go at it again, and then I stop. Now, one has to be very careful. This takes a very short time. And if you burn, you mess the whole piece up. And the hassle is, when wood burns, it fires. And if it fires, you got to wet it. So you got to have a bucket with a handkerchief or a wet cloth or a towel. And that creates it from sizzling. And then you wait until the water dries. And once the water dries, it expands and then contracts again. Expands and then contracts again. So then you wait for that to take place. And then from the top, you go to the bottom. And the reason why you go, now see the bottom of it here? Now you see how the expression is started? You see the middle. This is my first hit at burning. Then I go deeper, then I go deeper. And the reason why I burn it heavily on the top is because I remove all the moisture from it. That means it gets lighter. Now it gets lighter from 2 points of view. It gets lighter from the burning on one hand, and it gets lighter because the shape itself. In section, it's like this. So it's 2 inches on the top and 6 inches on the bottom. So inherently, the weight goes to the bottom. Then I pierce it so I see myself. And the idea is, you see the shape, you see the form, you see it moving, and then you see reality through it. Now, the person that inspired this idea was a man at MIT. His name was Harold Edgerton. Now, Harold Edgerton created the strobe. So what he did is he made what was invisible visible. You know, he made what was invisible. There's this famous shot of somebody shooting a gun, and you see the bullet going through an apple and the apple exploding. Or the golfer taking a stick and playing golf, and you see his sticks go. And that's what he created. And I fell in love with that idea. So based on that idea, I created these rockers that go this way, this way, this way. And I was fascinated by it. And then I created the holes because I wanted to have that same experience. So by the end, what it is life takes you, you go through it, you do a little scribble on a wall, and then you let the scribble speak to you. And then you go back and you hardline that scribble, and then you create it. But you don't let that scribble go, because if you let that scribble go, then what you're doing is you don't see the past. I like to see the past, I like to create the present, and then I let the future be for the future. But it's the whole system of creating it. It's the whole creation of life. And here you see it. Now you see the white oak on the left, and you see the ash there. You see how the veins are different? Here I burnt it at the bottom, but I burnt it at the bottom only because I wanted to contrast the big man there. I wanted that to read by itself here. Yeah? Now, when one looks at it, I also wanted to see its reflection. Therefore, I used 316L, which polishes like a mirror, and that's the base. Now, when you go to the airport, you'll be able to distinguish what is chrome, what is 304, and what is 316 by the nature of its reflection. And that's so pure, and that's so beautiful. It's very important not only to look at an elevation, but to move around it, to see its side, to see its back, and then slice it and see what lies under. And what this does is gives you an opportunity of experiencing the whole experience. Now imagine it being kinetic, like you have it downstairs, and it moving. Then it takes on its own transcendental meditation. And that softness and that harmony is very important because it pulls us human beings into this conversation that is very, very necessary. And to enjoy that tranquility, that's what you need. Now, looking at the cobra outside, the cobra has the same thing, but from a different point of view. The cobra is a reverse curve. Yes? It's a reverse curve because it's a somersault, boom, boom, boom. Now when you somersault, what happens is the center of gravity keeps shifting. And so when the center of gravity keeps shifting, it's talking to you. It goes this way like a pendulum. So it's the same idea. A different material, a different reflection, a different thought. That steel is cold, the wood is warm. And that itself creates its own dialogue between something that's slick and something that's warm. And that's also fascinating. And interestingly, is when you look at wood, you think it's like your great-grandfather, your grandfather before that. It's like your ancestors. The caveman used wood. Wood was very important in our life then, now, and will always be important. Steel came in much later. So I love this dialogue between the two, and I see myself doing a lot more, yeah.
My name is Tarik Currimbhoy. I am educated as a sculptor and also as an architect. What I love about sculpture is that you play with it, you see it, you feel it, you touch it. When I get a commission, I look at what's around me. So I don't want to create it from thin air. I'd like it to be an answer to a question. So what I do is I look at the space, I see where it's to be, I feel it, I sense it, and based on that I respond to it. It's a matter of subtracting one piece and then arriving at its pureness. Once I arrive at that, I look at the way the wind blows and I see how can I make it walk. Because I feel that if I can make it walk like a pendulum, move, there is a certain sense of tranquility. The Doris Duke Artists Award came about collectively with the foundation. They came over, they looked at my work, they saw it was kinetic. The word coined dancer was also collective. I think Doris Duke Foundation responded to the fact that it was kinetic, it moved. The Doris Duke Award is very special. Now, in order to create that award, I had to create a pendulum along two axes, a vertical axis and a horizontal axis. By creating the vertical axis, that is when the pendulum is at a standstill. Now, when you move it, that center line moves and one can appreciate it, yeah, and play with it. Yeah. And I feel that's where the success of the sculpture lies. I feel that Doris Duke gives one the ability to dream on a clean slate. And that dream creates a certain magic. And that magic is what one really needs.
Now talking about this magic, there's this woman called Doris Duke. There's a university in America called Duke University. Now her husband gave the money for Duke University. It's a very good college. She was his wife. He died, she inherited this empire. Now what she decided was that she felt that the world needed medicine. The world needed peace. The world, she felt, didn't give enough attention to dancers. So what she did is she created an endowment. The endowment was very large. It's like the Bill Gates endowment, yeah? And it was the Doris Duke endowment. Now, what she wanted to do is she wanted an award. She died. She died. She lived in the 60s. In the 70s, she died in the 70s. She was perhaps the richest American woman, one of the richest in the world. And very quiet, didn't say much, but this amount of money was given to the construction of an Islamic museum it's actually on the, where was it now? In Honolulu? Yeah, it was in Honolulu, in Hawaii, actually. It was in Hawaii. There it was, she felt that she was very interested in Mughal architecture. So she created this museum in Hawaii. Then what she did is she got a hold of all these doctors to create a research wing, and that would be the front runner of research in the world. Yeah. And then she decided to give some money to the dancers because she felt dancers were least appreciated. So they were looking to see what kind of award can they give the dancer. Now COVID is on, and COVID was at the tail end of it, and they were looking. So I was participating in the Armory Show. Armory Show is an art show in New York, and they saw my pendulum, and they loved the way the pendulum moved, and they felt it was like a dancer. So what they did is they select, and there's no Indian that can nominate you. Say, okay, you are Hajao. They selected me. So they came to me. I had to compete against others, but I didn't know who I was competing. It didn't matter. So they came to me and they said, we like this idea of equilibrium. We like the idea of the pendulum. Can you create a dancer? So now I know how long. The pendulum took a long time. It took a year to create. Now I can't create something in 3 months. So I said, listen, the pendulum goes this way. We'll cut off the tip of it, and it'll be like like these 2 points facing each other, dancing. So then what the next decision was, we dipped the top in bronze. So it's dipped 1.5 inches in bronze. This is 9 inches tall. So this was like gloves that a man and a woman are wearing, and they're dancing like ballerinas. And they loved that idea. So then what happened is this award was given at Lincoln Center. It was a big deal. It was given to all these actors and actresses, actually. And it was the Doris Duke Award. So, you know, I was on billboards. I became famous for like 60 seconds, as Andy Warhol would say. The tragedy was there were no Indians there, yeah? And Indians in America have to be active to see things, but nobody was there. This was a significant award. This was a significant piece of sculpture because it dealt with peace, it dealt with equilibrium, it dealt with tranquility, and it dealt with beauty. Yeah? And beauty can never, beauty is the front runner. But when you deal with the center of gravity, you're transcending all boundaries, you're dealing with human beings at large here. And I feel that's very important to me, not because I'm talking about a war or I'm talking about some kind of right. I'm talking about yourself. I'm talking about the needle of the compass pointing north. And I'm talking about the way you walk, the way you think, the way you feel. And that's my story, and that's my journey. My intent is not to create something cosmetic, but my intent is to create something honest. Yeah? And in that honesty, one has to understand what you're dealing with. And then you have a conversation with your canvas or with the material, be it steel or be it wood, and then together with that material, you romance and let that open up a world to itself. This is a very important commission that came to me. It's near Saratoga Springs where the horses run. Now what this is the fields that you see next door are maple. It's a maple forest. So there's a gap in the maple forest, and I wanted this piece, which is called Deja Vu, to vanish. Deja vu is I've seen it before, I felt it before. So I wanted to reflect everything around it. Yeah. Therefore, I did is I placed it in a position where you see that oval. The reason why there's an oval is because your horizon line goes through that oval. The land undulates. So as you walk, you go from 1 feet high to 1 feet low, 2 feet low to 3 feet low, to 1 foot high. So I established a horizon line that generated from the house. So when you're cooking breakfast, you're cooking your omelette, you look ahead through the window, you see the circle. That's how that. The slide next to that was it spinning. So that piece spins in 50 miles an hour winds and made of stainless steel, again, outside and inside. That's it spinning. The base itself is made of mahogany that I burnt. Now mahogany is what boats are made of. Now Burmatique is what boats are made of too. Burmatique is oily. This is also oily, but the way it burns is you can see the veins of the wood, which you can't see in Burmatique. So I chose mahogany. However, white oak is much better, and ash is the best for my work here. Okay, let's go to the next, please. Okay, that's my models. Huh? This comes out of the 3D machine. So the way I work is I'm in New York City. I'm also in Bombay every 3rd month. In New York, I create my shapes. I sketch it out. And then I make my wire models. And then I have my office do it in plans, elevation sections. And then I send it from New York to Bombay. Shusti in Bombay takes those drawings and makes it into a 3D plan. That 3D program is fed into my New York City office at night. So it prints out in the morning that model. I look at that model and I change it. I make all my adjustments. This is styrene. You can see the fuzz at the bottom. So it's styrene. And then from there, it goes into weights. Weights meaning this doesn't rock, it spins. So I don't really have to get into weights and balances. However, it spins this way with the wind. Now what you see on the right is the skeleton. It's like an aeroplane wing. The steel that's used there is again the steel on the outside, 316L. Now that goes to China. The program goes to China. So from New York, it goes to Bombay. From Bombay, it comes to New York. From New York, it goes to Shanghai. From Shanghai, it's fabricated and it's shipped to New York for installation. Now, look at Leonardo da Vinci. Huh? Leonardo da Vinci had a workshop. He had 100 people chiseling away. It's the same thing, but it's no longer chiseling. It's like doing the Tesla car. It's laser printing, laser cutting, and the thing is, you've got to be precise. Unless, if you're creating, if you're doing it for the world market, if you're competing in the world market, the piece has to be 100% on the button. Now that's it being spot welded. Sadly, India cannot manufacture a piece of this kind because the technology isn't there on one hand. And the second hand, you can't, the discipline is not there in terms of the fabrication. I've tried. So now what I do is I have it, I send as much as I can from America to Jaipur to polish it. And what I can't achieve is the concavity and the convexity. And concavity and convexity is very important to me because that's where the reflections lie. It's the distortion of an image. And that distortion has to be perfect, otherwise you lose it. I see, that's it. You see the concavity? It's like a funny mirror. You know, you go to see these funny mirrors at circuses. Now that's like a funny mirror. You look at it and you see yourself distorted. The intent here was you place it in nature and like a kaleidoscope, you see the leaves, the trees, the wind is blowing, you see it moving, and then you see the different seasons as they go by. That's it moving. That's the base. That base is 4 feet high. That's 16 feet tall. That base is covered with mahogany, burnt, that you saw in the earlier pictures. There's a sculptor called Richard Hudson, an English sculptor. And that's the factory he uses. I use the same factory. Okay, this is the house it was for. It's called the Y House. It's designed by an architect called Stephen Hall. He's like the Nobel Prize winner of architecture in the world. And it's bizarre. This client who is Italian, who works for McKinsey, he grew up in Colombia. He bought this house. The hassle of this house is, I think it's very poorly designed from the inside because it's full of ramps. Now imagine going up ramps. So you lose your whole sense of self, of gravity, because it's very unpredictable. And when you walk on a flat land, you know how you're walking. I'm walking straight. But when you walk up and down, you're going to take a leak, and all of a sudden you've got to go up and then go to another level and come down to another level. So it sort of shoots you out. But that's what this house is about. And my client found this house to be very exciting. He's a very eccentric man. I mean, what is the point of having two rooms face each other when you're in the middle of beautiful country? But that's what academia is on one hand. That's what when you talk about Damien Hirst chopping up a cow, freezing a cow, and selling the cow as an idea, and people clapping. That's disastrous. You know, I'm just saying that for myself. But Americans love it. They said that's a fantastic idea. However, that's not my little heartthrob in life. I believe in touching, feeling, and I believe in the truth. I believe in, you know, the forces of wind. I believe in the light shining. I believe in the shadow falling. Okay, it's on that land. And that's Naina, my wife here. And this is a mock-up. This is a mock-up of that piece itself, and that's the ellipse. I do that on every project because I feel that then you're actually making decisions that involve the site. And it's very important because it's site-specific. And that's what I love about it. Yeah. Now this shows you how it is installed, how it is packed. The idea is that that's being taken out from the truck, and now it's going to be loaded on to that little post, and you'll see it as it comes through the next slide. Okay, that's my base here, which I've burned. In here, this is a pipe actually goes all the way here, and that post is very, very strong, and it's anchored in concrete that goes 6 feet down. So when you deal with land sculpture, you've got to deal with much more than just being a sculptor, because you've got to do your wind studies, you've got to do your sun studies, you've got to do your structure, and then you make it come alive. And by the end, it looks like a ballerina. It looks so simple. So when it looks so simple, it's not that simple. There's a lot more. Now, I'm doing something for this lady called Kiran Nadar. It's for her university. And it's called The Eye. It's again based on reflections. Now, it's being presented on Monday to her. Without me, I'm not going to her. The gallery is going to go to her. But she wants a pretty face. Mine is not a pretty face. It's the real thing. Now, when you go in a university and you have a road that runs like 200 meters. 200 meters is the distance. Now, in order to be seen, you've got to look at the site. You've got to look at the scale. You've got to look at the sun. You've got to look at the moon. You've got to look at everything. And then you've got to say, this is where the students are going to be. How are they going to interact? And what's life going to be actually like? That's an important decision. Otherwise, it shouldn't be there. And I believe in that. Now, I was, 10 days ago, I was at Stanford. I was talking there. And I went to see Beverly Pepper. Now, Beverly Pepper is a great American sculptress who died about 10 years ago. She was Rowena Reed Costello's student. I was Rowena Reed Costello's student. So I went to the museum to see her work. These were like columns that sort of stretched up into the sky about 60 feet. It looked beautiful. But I know there's another 15 feet of reinforcement rods below the earth, dug into the ground, that made it look like so simple. And it was rusted. There was a patina to it. And it grounded that piece into the earth there. And it looked fantastic. And it was interesting. It was in the Auguste Rodin Museum, outside the Auguste Rodin Museum. The Auguste Rodin Museum is the largest Auguste Rodin collection in the world at Stanford. And they had about 100 Auguste Rodins. But when you saw Beverly Pepper, you said, wow. You said, wow, because it's two different approaches. One was more real, the other was more abstract. Although Auguste Rodin's contribution was he moved from the classics, shifted a little bit, and he created abstract expressionism. Beverly Pepper took that idea and pushed it further into a world of total abstraction. And I feel that total abstraction is so powerful because it transcends everything, because it takes you onto another plateau. Like I said earlier, Matisse, when he created a show of his work, he was branded as a fauve. A fauve means a wild beast here. And what he did is he challenged all the laws of art. When you look at, for instance, the Renaissance, Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, when you draw an ellipse, it's an ellipse. Because the horizon line is right there, the vanishing points are all there, they generate from the vanishing point out. What Matisse said is, that's not right. There's no vanishing point there, vanishing points are here. Space is there. He was right, he was feeling space. And hats off to him, the world turned into this abstract world where you could sense what is there in front of you and use that as part of the colors of your canvas. Yeah. Okay, there she stands, my déjà vu, in winter. This is not that long ago, it's about a year ago it was installed. That's the Y house. Yeah. That's it raining. That's it in fall. That's the beauty of steel, actually. And the wood let It's que sera, sera. Whatever happens, happens. Let it oxidize as it oxidizes. But that's the religion of what I feel my creation should be like. I don't want it to read like this, for instance. This is Formica. It's Formica put over plywood. Yeah, I don't believe in plywood. Huh? Now Jeram Patel's used plywood there. Yeah, you use plywood there. Now you use plywood there. It means you're given. It's layer after layer after layer. I don't believe in that. Yeah. You know, I believe in taking the real thing, scooping it out, and then making it work. Otherwise, use plastic. So you're coming from two different voices. Yeah. Listen, he's great. I'm not. I don't want to be great. I don't want to be anything. Yeah. But I want to say what I'd like to say because I believe in it. Yeah. It's like that tree. You cut the tree. You see these concentric circles, and then you burn it. It pops out at you, and then you shape it, and then it works with you. Yeah. Otherwise, why do it? Is that the end? Oh, then you come to my favorite cobra. Now, she looks lost without a male. Soon there's going to be another piece coming in the pond, which is going to be the male. Yeah? Now that's again the same steel that's used in Deja Vu. That's my serpent. Let me just walk here. The wind was blowing, and the wind currents were so strong that it sort of swayed in its own weight. So it moved. And that's interesting. And I feel that sculpture should be touched, it should be felt, it should be played with. It shouldn't be precious. Is that the last one? Yeah? I want to say that, you know, MAP is an oasis in the world in many ways. We need platforms like MAP that give you the ability of being able to say what you want to be able to do what you want to achieve what you'd like to. Yeah? It's that platform that raises us all to another level. And the beauty of art, whether it be literature or dance, is that it transcends all boundaries. Yeah? And I feel that that's the next frontier, because that's where our emotions lie. I know we're living in a technology world. I know we're living in a tech world, but we can't forget the blood that runs through our veins. We can't forget the heart that pumps it, because if we do, we're lost, basically. And hats off to MAP to give me the opportunity of not only having my Cobra there, of having basically a show downstairs. Now, Jeram Patel in my conversation is a good idea because it makes you think. It makes you think. Two different voices saying maybe the same thing, maybe not. But it's important to have two different voices. And thank you for giving me this opportunity of being able to speak to you today. And I look forward to seeing many of you thinking and feeling the same way as I do. Whether I met this guy Ram downstairs, yeah, in the elevator. He's telling me how he makes his chutney. Fascinating. It's the same philosophy with what I'm saying. Yeah, what I'm saying is believe in yourself, feel it. And he's telling me I love making chutney. I take this coconut and grind it. And I do this, I squeeze it, I hang it up. It's my piece of art. I said, shabash. He's cooking, but it's great because he's using the same sensibility, which is fantastic, actually, yeah? And one can't forget that, yeah? And now when you make a chapati, okay, you take a chapati, you put it on this pan, you put it there, it starts to burn, you put it in heat, and you flip it over. It's like burning wood. You know, they say it's Japanese, but the thing is about Japanese wood, what are they doing in essence? Okay, they're waterproofing the wood. They're using in architecture as a cladding. Fine. Yeah? But what it is it's performing a certain function to create architecture. It's not going beyond that. Now, an architect's dream is to create something fantastic, but his hands are tied. So what he's doing is he's creating a cladding. Like this building has a steel cladding, and then there's glass. Here what you're doing is you're getting into the system itself. You're getting into this Japanese art of burning wood, and you're exploring what it's all about. And then, boom, creating a vocabulary that's really unknown to you. And then you're making it work. And the thing is, when I burn, I sweat. I sweat because I don't know what's going to happen. And then I walk away from it. And in my drawing, what I do is I use lighter fluid. I do it once, I wash it with lighter fluid, I go back, wash it again, put another layer of color, and then I go back again. And then I don't like erasing anything. But I want to show you one thing. You see this line here? This is one line, one axis, and that's the axis. That point is my center of gravity. And that's the center of my strength. And there's the line. If you have any questions, please ask me. Yes?
Thank you. This is absolutely fascinating. But I've had the privilege of seeing your work for a couple of decades.
Yes.
And I wanted you to perhaps connect this very kinetic sculpture, this very reflective sculpture, you know, reflecting, with the earlier, more monumental marble pieces.
Okay.
Yeah, so how is that part of this journey as well? You know, like the one at
Yes.
Omai or the
Well,
one...
well, you know, that's a good question. I was always, being an architect, I was always interested in stone. Every architect is interested in stone. And you see the city of Jaisalmer. The beauty of Jaisalmer is it's under compression. Yeah, the walls are not straight, they're at an angle. And then when you see a window, it has a lintel on the top, it's got a sill at the bottom. So what the lintel does, it distributes weight, basically. From there, that excited me. And then after that, what happened is, I looked at the Roman arch. Now the arch that you see here in India is the Indo-Sasanic arch, which is bits and pieces of India, of Muslim, of Hindu, of Sikh, and English. And it's combined to create this kind of vocabulary, which ends like a Gothic arch. But then when you go beyond that, you see the Roman arch. The Roman arch fascinates me the most of all. It fascinates me the most of all because it's the purest form. It's boom and boom. Then what happens is you go into these giant cathedrals and you see these flying buttresses. That also excites me because then what happens is the interior spaces can be made larger because these flying buttresses go this way, hit the arch, and then the span becomes larger. And then of course, that Roman arch was destroyed, became a Gothic arch because it's shot up higher. Yeah? All that excited me, so I was into stone. Then what happened is that from the stone I said, listen, let me see if I can make it move. You can't make it move with stone. However, I tried to make it move with stone by creating these little circles. I think you have a circle, huh? So I played with this circle and I made it thicker, thinner. But Kuch hua nahi, it didn't take it to the next level. I felt I was trying too much. And then I got into copper. I loved copper because when you cast copper, it's like lost wax. Huh? So what you do is you create, there's this Jewish dish that I used to eat in New York where they take a fish. You take the whole fish and then what you do is you encase it with salt and you bake it. I don't know if there's an Indian dish, but I know there's a Jewish dish. So you bake it in the oven. You take it out of the oven, you crack the shell and you open it. So it's steamed fish. That's delicious. So that is the same idea as the copper. So the copper, what happens is, you make it in wax, and what they do in Jaipur is they take sand, and the sand is bonded together with jaggery, with gur. And then of course you melt the wax, it's poured out, and in its place comes the copper, and then copper has all these tentacles like this. The alien, the tentacles are cut, and then it's polished, and then it rocked, and that rocking excited me. You know, then I said, okay, now the copper is beautiful, and I love the copper. Then from copper I went to brass actually, and the problem with brass, I didn't like the way it looked too goldish to me. And then I went to stainless steel. I love stainless steel because it had that polish. Now I didn't know about 316L. Now you know you make your mistakes, and then you see that it's not really a mistake. You do a little thing, and you make it. It becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. And then I found that I discovered 316L, surgical steel. I loved 316L because it polished so beautifully. It looked like a mirror. And then it also moved. Then I found out it was moving for 20 minutes. And that gave me a thrill, yeah. And that's how I moved to steel. And then that was heavy steel. And then I got into this whole idea of distortion of form. Now when you did the circle, you look at the circle, it's a distortion. You look at it from the side elevation. The front is reflection, the side is distortion. And I loved the idea of a distortion. Then I said, with a convexity, why don't I create a concavity? And then I said, okay, what if I pierced it to see the world? And that's when Doc Edgerton came to my life, yeah. Harold Edgerton, cinematography. And that pushed it. These are little ideas that, you know, you have your moments in life, you push it. Dreams in life, and then you see where it leads, like que sera, sera. Yes, my wife.
The center is always, it's gravity, right? In stone also you were using the keystone.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And the same thing you're doing here. It's
That
gravity.
yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. So basically what Naina is saying is, you know, when you build, when you see these, whether it be a dome, and you pierce the dome, or it be the Taj Mahal, in any kind of construction, there's always that keystone in the arch. You have the keystone, and that keystone locks the whole piece together. That's gravity. Because once you pull out the keystone, the whole thing falls apart, basically. Yeah? And that keystone is where the magic lies. Yeah? And the thing is, you know, life becomes a journey. And I feel really bad when I'm with my class friends. They spend their whole life pursuing art. I've not spent my whole life pursuing art. I'm doing all these little things. But then what happens is life becomes a journey. And one thing teaches you about another, and teaches you about a third. And today, I'm doing what I'm doing, and I'm happy. I'm successful in what I'm doing in my own little way. They're still polishing shoes. Yeah? Now, I don't tell them that, you know, this is what my journey is. I just keep quiet. And I clap when they think, when I see something nice, I clap. But I don't tell them about my life here. It's just, you know, I'm lucky because I'm in New York City. I'm lucky because I have this idea. I'm not emulating or reflecting anybody else's idea. I'm Indian. I'm doing what I am. I'm creating what I am. And then the rest is kismat. But it's good because the currents are strong. From there I can look all around. From Bombay I can't look actually beyond certain walls there. There are too many hassles here. Okay.
Thank you so much for the presentation. I had a question. I believe a lot of your works also works with reflection.
Yes.
It's almost like a lot of infinite movement in space. And you use water or even steel at times to sort of or even mirror to have that reflection going on. Is there anything that you would like to comment about this?
I'll tell you how it really works. In terms of kinetic movement, the smoother the surface it's on, the longer it moves. The smoother your own sculpture is, the longer it moves. Yeah. So gravity pulls it to a certain point. Then if the point is not smooth, it won't move. If the point is smooth and your surface is smooth, then it goes very well. Now, therefore, what I do is I polish all the sides. If I was to hone the edges, it wouldn't move as long as it was polished, basically. That's one. The second thing is I like to see what I can't see. Now, when I look at a form, what you see is, you know, you see somebody walking. You see the front person, you see the side, you see the top. You'd never see from the bottom looking up. Now when you have a mirror, you see another reflection that you don't see again. And I like the idea of being caught by the ground. I like the idea of a shadow. And that anchors you to the ground. That's very important to me, because I feel that that tick-tock pendular effect is reflected and it's understood. And that's where I feel the magic lies.
Tarik, are you doing anything in any other material? Tarsha said started with stone, then you're doing wood, stainless steel. Are you also experimenting with other materials?
Now what I'm doing right now is, it's very interesting. I got a piece that was given to the Aga Khan as an award for the restoration of Humayun's tomb. Now the Aga Khan, I had no idea. The Fatimid dynasty, going back to the Prophet Muhammad, the Fatimid dynasty used to look after the rock crystal mines, and the pink quartz mines were looked after by the Fatimid dynasty. The leader was the Aga Khan. I had no idea that the dynasty looked after these mines there. Now, I'm very fascinated by that stone, because my fascination is not, I'm very fascinated by refraction, not by reflection. Now in reflection, you take a diamond, light reflects on it. You take you take crystals, for instance, Baccarat crystal. It's all reflection of light. I like the idea of putting a straw in a glass of water and the straw bending. Now, coming to rock crystal, I love what I did in my rock crystal sculpture. I chiseled a concavity into it, and once I got into it, it created this very interesting magic of light. Now, when you see a white rock crystal with a pink rock crystal, you see that translucency, that transparency, and I love that. Yeah. And I love the idea of two pieces of the same, coming from the same quarry, dancing with each other. So now let's see what happens. And this show that I just had at the Akara Gallery was very important to me, because it's my first solo show in India. And I wanted to know how India would respond. It's very important to me, because this is the country I was born in. This is part of my life here. And it was a success. People responded to it. I thought they would say, hey, it's like a scooter, it's like a chair, like a nut and a bolt. But the interesting thing is that people understood the idea of gravity. They understood the idea. They appreciated the idea of the symphony, of quietness, of tranquility. I hope that answers you, yeah. And that's what I want to pursue. That's what I want. I want to get into more boulders. Now, what I do is I buy the whole boulder, and then I have it sliced. Now, it's interesting. Rock crystal cannot be cut at angles, the angles that I wanted to. So it's cut by a machine into blocks, and then goes to a diamond merchant who cuts it in sections with a chisel, and then goes to another factory who cuts the concavity. So there are lots of people involved in it. Now, Anish Kapoor works in alabaster, and that alabaster comes from Italy. Mine is rock crystal. Mine is crystal. And that, now crystal is, it's an igneous rock. It's a quartzite. So a quartzite is very fragile also, and it splinters. At the same time, it's very, very strong. Marble is not that strong. And alabaster cannot do what I wanted to do. But what I do is I marry rock crystal with steel because of weights and balances. He does it because of light. He's very successful in it. Yeah. I do it because of light also. So what I do is these blocks that I get, and I taper them from, like, say, 4 inches to 2 inches. So the quality of light is fascinating. So I hope to get into it.
Thank you for doing this. Yeah. So I just have a general question, like, regarding art, right? What do you think of form over function in general? Like, there is art just purely form, right? Like over function. There is no thought put into it. I'm not judging, but like there is some art put into it.
Okay, see, I'll tell you what the beauty of art is. Huh?
Yeah.
I love art. I love the abstraction of art in particular, because what it does is it moves away to another form of nirvana actually, because it's more powerful. Because you're doing things, you're working with the essence of color, with the essence of form, with the essence of abstraction. However, my journey has been more specific. My journey is more in terms of achieving a kind of transcendental tranquility. Huh? Through form, through mechanics in many ways, but at the same time through beauty, where I distill it and I distill it and I distill it. Now, if I could be like I would say Anish Kapoor, for instance, his pieces are beautiful, yes? But if you go beyond that to Henry Moore, where he takes form apart and plays with it, he plays with space, I like that, actually. Archipenko, I like that. Yes? That deals with pure forms that are very powerful that you walk into. I love Richard Serra, in particular. I love Richard Serra because you can walk and sense your feeling. These are monumental pieces that are made in submarine factories, and then it's rusted. And I love it because it controls your movement. Yeah? That's my dream, actually. But what I want to do is like a snake. I want it to move, like the alien. I don't know if I'm going to succeed, but I want to attempt to do it, because then at least it's something that I'm looking and searching for. I don't want to do what's safe. Now, when you ask me what's my journey, I feel that it's like a pack of cards. One thing leads to the other, leads to the third. I remember in 1975, I went to the Whitney Museum. There was this guy called Jean Tinguely. I'm pronouncing it wrong. It's a French sculptor, Jean Tinguely. So what he did is he did something like a pack of cards. Yeah? One thing holding another piece, holding a third piece, like cards. Yeah? And then what he did is he spent years doing it in the museum, and then he took that card and he moved it with his index finger. The cards were big, my size. Yeah? And at the end there was a fire burning 50 feet away in the courtyard. So then it created an effect. And that one card fell against another card, fell against the third card, fell against the fourth card, and then it blew up into a fire. And then everybody clapped. Yeah. No? But I remember that being a young boy, because it's like a ripple effect. It's one thing creates another. It's like Alexander Calder's twittering machine. So I was fascinated by it, and I love the idea of it burning itself up, because I didn't expect it to happen. And so that remained in my mind, and I said, and I like the idea of it, but then I said, I don't want my journey to be that way. I want it to be gentle. I want it to be something like Zubin Mehta, you control the New York Philharmonic. You're orchestrating it. Not like Alexander Calder, because the wind blows it, you can't control it. So I wanted it to be like a composer composing it. Yeah. Let's see where it takes me.
I have another question.
Sure.
You mentioned you have an architecture background.
I
right?
do, but I also have a fine art background.
Oh, okay.
My first degree is in the fine
Did you
arts.
end up like working on architecture projects?
Yes,
like
I did. I did a lot of work.
Is there a place where we can visit them on your website?
Well, there's one beautiful building which is in Gurgaon. It was actually an Indian landmark here, by the Germans here. It was the McKinsey office. But then I just heard that because the land is so precious, they're going to demolish it to build a tall skyscraper. So what happens is, it's good architecture. It's really good. It's beautiful, because what I did is I built it like one of these Parsi campuses. Like Tata's. Tata was an architect. He went to the same college as me, Cornell. He also went to cathedral that I went to. Yeah? But the beauty of the Parsi community is that the Parsi community created these courtyards. They created these large community spaces, gardens, and then they built their houses around it so all the kids could play. Now what's happened is that garden is more valuable than the pieces around. So what's happened is that the buildings are being demolished so they can build all these eccentric towers. Yeah? So now it's history, but you can Google me and you can see other pieces through it. Yeah. But the beauty of, but coming to you, huh? The beauty of architecture is it's an answer to a question. The beauty of being an artist is it's your kujli in life. You can do anything. You know, and you don't have to polish anybody's shoes. You got to believe in what you do. You got to present it the way you want to, and if they like it, they like it. Otherwise, it's ke sara sara. And that's what I love. Yeah, you know, I got this like duplex to do at the Bloomberg building for this billionaire. Yeah, the guy fucks me around. He doesn't need he has a girlfriend that's 20. He's 70 years old. He can't decide if there's refrigerators, whether there's a microwave, there's fridges. I'm working on the microwave fridge. I got my office. I'm paying everybody. The guy is telling me, oh yeah, do this. He's not Indian, yeah. But by the end, it's such a waste of my time. Now my sculpture is doing well. So I told him at the end, you come late next time, I'm going to walk away. Yeah? And that's what I did. I walked away. He couldn't understand it. But it didn't matter to me. It didn't matter to me because I felt that I have achieved a higher form in my life than this man will ever achieve. He's got the billions, but he can't feel the earth under his feet. Yeah? And just remember, being an artist, you have that ability of being able to walk above the ground. Yeah? Good luck. Please. Okay. Okay. Now you know Zaha Hadid, right? Yeah. Now Zaha Hadid's work is fantastic, actually. Yeah? Now the thing is, architects always dream about being sculptors, actually. Yeah? You can't be a sculptor because you got a family, you got a baby, you got to feed the whole thing. The wheels have to turn in life. Yeah. So then you got to do an architect. Then you've got to be an architect. But then you dream of a certain utopia. The problem is when you start building, you're building according to a criteria. And that's where the mess up lies. Because then it's an answer to a question, yeah? And you got to, the guy's paying you a lot of money. You can't just create your own dreams. You're not Frank Lloyd Wright. So so then what you do is you're answering a question, yeah? And then you create, you compose, and that's your success. But being an artist, you don't have to worry about that. You do what you believe in. But the good thing is being an architect spills into being more because you understand it. Now, I wouldn't be able to do things like this if I couldn't understand it. Because if I can't make my déjà vu stand, there's no point in it, yeah? But I did make my mistakes. I tried to correct it. I corrected it. But it's difficult, yeah? Now I'm getting used to it. You burn your fingers. But the beauty of being an architect is that you can create things, yeah? That you can live in, you can walk in, it's part of your life. That's correct. That's correct. You have to take a leak, you've got to cook, you've got to have a living room, you've got to have an auditorium. Now say I didn't think of all those things because I thought of the sun shining. You're creating a shadow, you're breaking up the forms into these spaces that you walk into. That's why I like Richard Serra. Those of you who don't know Richard Serra, he just creates these incredibly beautiful forms that you walk into. They're pure forms. Yeah? And again, it's devoid of any sort of decoration. It's powerful, yeah? And the power that power moves you when you walk in it.
All right. I guess on that note, thank you so much, Tarik, for taking us on this giving us a little bit of a glimpse into this journey of yours and showing us, I guess, what a labor of love lies behind all of this very simple looking sculptural forms. And thank you all for joining us this evening, being so engaged and, interacting more as well and asking questions. Have a great weekend. And there is still, the museum will be open until 7:30, so there's still a little bit of time to check out the shows on view. And follow us on social media or subscribe to our newsletter to keep updated on all of the other engagements and events we have coming up. Thank you so much, and good night.
Thank you. And listen, if you have any questions, you can always email me. I'll be there to answer. Yes, sir. Right. Okay, so now, what I do, it takes me about a year to create something that's successful. It's always in progress until it really until it's perfect. The truth is, you are the only person that know it's perfect. The other people don't know. So then the thing is, you're looking at yourself in the mirror and you're saying, if I'm doing this, I might as well do it right. I'm not doing it to make another rupee. I'm doing it because I want it to be right so it can live on. Now when a child plays with it, it's successful. Because the more successful you see it, the more successful the child will feel it, but it'll live on. And you want it to live on. Now Margaret Mead, this great sociologist that passed away, she said toys are meant to break. Which is correct. The American mind is so messed up from that point of view. American mind says, okay, ye karo, sales are important, this is important, you got to earn that living. You got to bring in that kind of money. Therefore what happens is a toy is made, but the toy is made in such a way that doesn't last. It's not like the little top that you create in Bangalore, for instance. It's not like the wooden puppet. It's something else which a kid plays with, but then after a year it's forgotten. And I feel that ideas should last. Yeah. It has to withstand time. Yeah. And then as it goes, it goes. But pureness will never be forgotten. It'll never be forgotten. A ball is a ball. You rubber ball, you pitch it. Hard ball, you do. An egg, you can't forget. Yeah. So that's the kind of utopia that one walks towards in one's dreams. Yeah. I hope I've answered you. Thank you. What's your name?